I think who would the blue states send to fight? There'd be a ton of people from blue states that would. They're all the police, the sheriffs. Believe me, don't assume the leaders of blue state are rigged elections that we've had in rigged elections in blue states long before 2020. So no, there's a ton of police and sheriffs that would totally stand with Texas. But see, there's a bigger problem here. See, there's really a bigger problem, and it's this whole let's move on from 2020. This was the biggest mistake. It truly was. And I get Trump moved on, but you can't move on because what we've been living in is a total effing lie. And what's the reason the Constitution holds no water anymore is it ends up being only ink on paper is because all of the levels failed. All of the safeguards failed because they don't have strong enough character. They don't have enough moral integrity. Like there should have been somebody. Let's just assume that the Supreme Court's not corrupt. We know some of them are. But if for the ones that aren't, why weren't they on the news every day saying, no, we should be taking every single case about 2020 because it's obvious to anybody. They can lie to themselves. I mean, people are great at lying to themselves and saying, well, that's not how our process works. Well, then you should have enough common sense to say, if I don't speak up and say, no, we need to be addressing this, then we will get to a constitutional crisis and people will be at a standoff. So they failed. Every one of the justices failed. Regardless of the way they voted, they failed because they went along with all the lies too. So did the Secret Service. Why didn't they make noise? Why didn't they do a citizen's arrest on Biden? There's no way these people don't know what happened. We know there's a ton of people that know and have seen enough evidence for ourselves of what happened. And yet everybody just goes along with it. You can't do that. You can't expect to just, we're just going to, slide on through this and never have to be held accountable that we did not address the biggest lie of 2020. There's just where you end up. And what you expect is those layers, your lower courts, your higher court, somebody to do the right thing, somebody to snap out of their black robe syndrome and come to their senses and say, we won't have a court because we won't have a constitution unless we have strong enough people that say, forget all this other stuff, forget all of these bylaws that we're going to put around ourselves to make excuses why we don't do the right thing, and just do the right thing and speak up and take these cases. But a ton of them would say, well, I don't have any control over that. Well, you have a voice. All of them have a voice, especially the ones on the court that are Christians. They should have been making truth the number one thing. There's no way they don't know what happened in 2020. Instead, everybody just gets into their comfortable places and says, well, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, that's the problem. But you don't try. The court especially. They've lost any credibility they had. I don't think they can repair it because in my mind, they caused the standoff to happen because they were the highest court. And that's you can't go any higher except to God, which is where everybody should go now for help. But they were the last of the line. And they have not been doing the right thing. I don't care what their excuses are. They have not. They have wanted to ignore the pink elephant in the room, and they have for 3 years, pushing cases back, pushing them on the lower court because they've been stalling. That is how your Constitution gets destroyed. And you end up in a constitutional crisis. That's why none of them matter anymore. Because none of these courts matter. They don't. What? These corrupt people in the media, they're what? Maybe 1% of everybody? It doesn't matter. There is no Constitution. Because for 3 years, there has not been enough people at all these layers, at the Congress, at the House, in the media, but in the courts, anywhere, that was willing to do the right thing and be about truth. So their whole justice system is shit. Because if your justice system can't even stand on basic truths, on self-evident truths. If our Supreme Court justices can't even see self-evident truth of what happened in 2020 and say, no, we need to go all out and start listening to these cases more than any others, then your Supreme Court doesn't matter. And because your Constitution doesn't matter, because you don't have strong people at any level. That's how we ended up here. And all love. I mean, I think the everyday people have done everything they can in their counties, their towns, all this different stuff and speaking up. But it's these other levels. It's the Secret Service surrounding Biden. Why are they going along with the lie? I mean, people can make whatever excuses they want. Well, they didn't know. Oh, come on. Why are there people in the FBI still, or DHS, or all these that are still going along with the lie? It's the people going along with the lie that's the problem. And then everybody that wants to move on from 2020, 2020 has to be resolved before moving on to something good. And this was my biggest fear after 2020 happened, was that people would get into that place where it's like, we just have to move on. No, because they'll do it again to you, maybe not 2024, but at some point, and everybody will just be like, we'll write it out. No, you can't just move on from a lie that has not been reconciled. What everybody's done at all the levels of government, Republicans, Democrats, House, they caused the constitutional crisis, all of them, no matter what their words say. I mean, they can make all the excuses, but seriously, it doesn't work. Because the Constitution means nothing without strong people that are willing to start from a place of truth. There's no low court, there's no high court, there's no Congress, no House, no media that's willing to start from a place of self-evident basic truth. That you'd have to be under a rock not to know what happened in 2020, and to try to move on from that, like everybody in the media, like everybody in social media, like everybody except for a few, obviously, everybody in the court system, acting like everything is normal, acting like you're operating under a normal government, and you're not placing truth first. That's what ends up causing everybody to come to the constitutional crisis of Americans against Americans. The courts threw out the Constitution a long time ago. None of these people have done the right thing, but neither have all the other people I mentioned. When a wrong has been committed on the level that they committed it in 2020, you cannot move on from it. People have to speak up about it. And they have to throw whatever their rules are in their systems out, because they should just know that if they can't start with standing on truth, then they're standing on nothing but sand, which is why it's all sinking.